Hi, everyone. Today I want to connect a couple of dots for you. And so I'm going to share, I've talked about my signature system in the past, I've talked about my diagnostic in the past, and I realized I've not connected the dot for a lot of people. And for those of you who are watching these daily insights from Clientology, what I want to show you is how I connect the dots. And this is a training on how we can create a diagnostic which eventually becomes the foundation for a book, an authority book. So the first authority book, the easy one, is your diagnostic. And really, truly, the whole point of this book is helping somebody get as crystal clear as possible on whether they need your help or not. So I'm going to share a couple of tools with you today. And the first thing is the diagnostic, but I need to back up half a step and show you the origin of the diagnostic. And I realize I've thought about this a lot. I probably haven't talked about it publicly because I just hadn't connected the dots as a gap. So, one of the things when we work with somebody in the ready stage of clientology, which again, we've talked about the ready stage. We need people to understand what their dream clients are. And the second thing is they need to have a signature system. So that is this visual. And basically, the premise of the signature system, and I've borrowed pieces of this from all over the world. So if you see something that you've helped me with, I appreciate you. I don't always know who to credit. So if you've helped me develop this, thank you. If you'd like credit for helping me develop, please reach out. I'm happy to credit you. I love giving credit for those people who've helped me. But the idea behind the signature system is that we know who our ideal client is, their avatar. We are in an industry niche, and I talk about industry niche all the time because it's the easiest thing to scale. So pick an industry, solve their problems, get to know their problems. You've seen me talk about the video, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So we want to fall in love with our dream clients' problems, and then from there, we identify what they want us to solve. That's our promised result or our core promise. And from there, as the expert, our job is to design the signature system. Think of it as the vehicle that helps them or the bridge that helps them get from their problem to the promise. And this is not going to be a detailed teaching, but the reality is there are 5 stages. And the reason we give them 5 is it shows people progress. If we just have one stage and we say, hey, I will send you something 6 years from now, people lose interest. So we deliberately have 5 stages, and each one of those stages gets them closer to their goal. And I'll show you something here in a second. And you might be counting, yes, there's 5 stages. And you might be thinking, but Jeff, on your diagnostic, there's only 3 core areas, core area 1, 2, and 3. Here's the promised result in the center. Here are the core areas 1, 2, and 3. We apply 80-20. So we're looking at our 5 stages and saying if somebody only did stage number whatever, they would get 80% of the result we promised. If somebody only does stage number X, they'll get more of what we promised. So we're applying the 80-20 to the 5 stages, and we're saying of these 5, which 3 are the most important? And usually it's stage 1, 2, and 3, but sometimes it might be stage 1, 3, and 5, or it might be some other variation. But as the expert, you're designing your signature system to give them 100% of your promised result. The diagnostic is only intended to give 80%. And the reality is, if they diagnose and they don't have the problem that you have, you're saving them time. They can say, oh, I don't need this. But if they're not willing to do the 20% that gets them 80% of the way in your signature system, they're not going to go all the way in your signature system either. So we're helping them identify the 3 most important stages out of 5 that they can and should implement right away. Now, one of the things I like to do is I always have a diagnose stage. So for me, diagnostic is always the first thing. What are the most important thing they need to know? And what are the 3 most important projects they need to undertake to be able to diagnose that they have the problem we solve? So I usually include diagnosis. And then here's the next thing. So when I teach people, and this is part of our course system, you can either join one of our programs, or the workbook is available on Amazon. What we teach people is that every problem, from problem to solution, can be 5 stages, or should be 5 stages. There's a science to it, a logic to it. Stage 1 in my world is usually diagnosis. Stage 2 is recommendation. Stage 3 is some variant of implementation. Stage 4 is usually ongoing maintenance. And then stage 5 is usually optimize. So most businesses can have those 5 stages. You give it your own unique names. You're going to name your system something unique to you. Now, here's the secret. You're going to have 5 stages that get you 100% of your promise, right? Now, you're going to pick the top 3 that deliver most of your promise, not all, and you're going to put it on a diagnostic. So that's core area 1, 2, 3. So you're picking your top 3 out of 5 stages, and they become the core areas for your diagnostic. Now, the next thing is, so let's say we have stage 1, optimize. You will list all of the steps in that stage. Now, for the record, if you need more than a dozen or so steps, you probably need another stage. But chunk it up till you get to the point, but you pick your top 3 steps. So if you have a dozen steps in stage 1 diagnosis, you pick your top 3 steps from stage 1, and they become project 1, project 2, project 3. So again, 80-20 principle, we're going to pick the 3 stages that give us the most results. We're going to pick the 3 steps that give us the most results within each stage. So that becomes project 1, project 2, project 3. And of course, you then do that same exercise. You take, maybe it's step 2, recommendation. You've got 12 steps there again. You'd pick your best 3, and they become project 4, 5, and 6. And then last but not least, you pick your 3rd most important stage, and you pick the 3 most important steps, and they become 7, 8, and 9. By the way, one thing I'll just point out, a good diagnostic goes, in my view, it flows from the very right all the way around. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that most people, they'll implement poorly the first time they do it. So really, truly, if you can diagnose and solve these problems, the first round is just coming around, triaging, solving the minor things, and getting started. Maybe it's appointing the team members who will do it. It's creating the project plan. The second round, and this is, if you want ongoing coaching or consulting, the second round is you're optimizing the things that you've discovered or implemented. And then the final round is mastery. You can go around again and again and again. So this diagnostic actually becomes an upward spiraling circle. So year 1, you start here, you go around the circle. Year 2, you go up, you go a little more in detail. And by year 3 and beyond, they should be mastering it. And that's your goal, is to help them master it. Now, the last thing I want to say, I want to finish the signature system. So for every one of your stages, you would list what the finish line is. How does somebody actually know that they've crossed the finish line? So if you think about the journey from the problem they have to the promise, each of these finish lines should be a milestone that you want them to celebrate. So an obvious thing, for example, with a diagnostic phase, the finish line is the deliverable. They get a report explaining what they need to do. The prize is usually the report or it's the clarity. And the key piece, I see this done wrong all the time. The finish line and the prize are what are the benefits to your dream client as they make the journey. So if you think about it, you get in a car, you're going to drive 5 hours. The finish line for each milestone might be, you break the trip into, we have young kids, so we break the trip into hour-long segments. So every hour we stop for leg stretch, make sure everybody's got a drink, food, need the bathroom, what have you. So you need to have that finish line and what the prize is. And what this does is it builds momentum for them. They're part of the solution. They're going to get excited. They're going to see these stages being checked off. They're going to see the steps being checked off. They're going to cross the finish line. They're going to celebrate. They're going to get their prize. And then they're going to be motivated to go to the next stage. So that's the goal, is to move our clients from the problem to the promise. And we do that. The first step is we identify the main things. And here's the secret. If they're not willing to do your top 3 areas with your top 3 recommendations for each, so 9 recommendations in total, they're not going to do everything else. So it doesn't matter if you have 567 steps, which I would say that's too many in so many places. The reality is, no matter how many steps you have, they're not going to get the promised result if you aren't able to get them to commit to this. Now, I've talked about turning the diagnostic into the book. I just wanted to share a little bit. So I'm going to walk through one more time. The promised result should identify who your dream client is and what big result you're getting for them. And by the way, I've seen people who put things like, oh, contract signed or deal closed. Those are things for you. Anything that involves your administrative process doesn't matter. This signature system starts with contract signed. So it's not about you. It's not about your sales cycle. It's not about you celebrating, hey, we got somebody in the funnel. This is about the minute they sign the contract, how are you delivering value? And by the way, if you're doing proposals, you're doing contracts, I would lay out this in your contract so that people can be reminded, oh yeah, Jeff said we'd have to do this. For example, when we do an authority book, one of the things you need to do is design and approve your cover. So put that in the contract so they can check it off. It'll give them the motivation. So I hope that was helpful. I'll see you tomorrow.